frustrating.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ben Helfon, and I am the co-author of Our Happy Divorce, How Ending Our Marriage Brought Us Closer Together. Thank you for joining us today, tonight, wherever you are. Last week we had a technical difficulties, like my internet went out completely in my house, or my office, so we were unable to do it. But as always, I am joined by Kate Anthony and Susan Guthrie. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi, Kate.
Kate, you are looking good. How are you feeling?
I feel I'm a little woozy. I haven't made the official announcement yet, but I guess we're doing that now.
Well, you're doing it now. Let's do this.
Drop!
It's a big moment. We're about to drop some big news.
Woo! I got vaccinated this morning. So
Yes.
yeah. So I'm fine. My arm hurts. I took some Tylenol. I'm just a little woozy, but I'm fine. It's better than COVID. So since you know that too.
And you know that one too. So you have an expert of somebody with COVID, with vaccination, and nothing terrible. No third eye, no 11th toe, nothing so far?
Nothing so far. Just
That's good.
achy arm and like a little woozy. So if I kind of go in and out today, I apologize. I'm gonna try and hold it together.
That's right. You'll just sound more like me. It'll be perfect. So our guest tonight or today, wherever you're located, is Aliette Carolan, and I spoke with her. She's actually the second time we've ever had to cancel, unfortunately, because I threw out my back when she was supposed to be on the last time. I spoke with her a couple months ago and just thought she would be perfect for the stream. So let's welcome Aliette Carolan. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. How are you guys?
We're doing. One of the things that we had talked about is obviously just if you want to tell people who you are and about your firm and why you got into the business and what you where you're moving it and to get to this topic of what we're talking about tonight, which is great.
Sure. So I'm Aliette Carolan. I am a family law attorney. I've been practicing since 2004. So I'm in my 17th year of divorce work from a legal perspective. Traditional model up until about 3 years ago. I've litigated. I still litigate. I still have my litigation practice. But about 3 years ago, I started moving toward a more friendly, amicable way and kind of almost like putting my foot down with my clients and my cases and really steering the case toward an amicable resolution. I've been a certified family law mediator since 2009. So I've always believed in the process of resolving amicably. But then it just really became like almost like I can't do it anymore, the other way, the traditional way. So I started planning to, sort of an exit strategy out of the traditional model of litigating cases. And I founded thequickdivorce.com. That is a online kind of like a do-it-yourself divorce platform, your go-to one-stop shop to get through your divorce in an amicable, easy, it's completely efficient, it's inexpensive. And my favorite part about it is that the idea is to preserve not only your financial estate, but also your psychological and mental well-being. My whole practice now is geared on the idea that it is way more important to preserve the dignity of the process and your relationship than it is to fight for every dollar, or ever, God forbid, ever put your kids in the middle of a dispute, So I'm really trying to push forward this idea that what we do is very codified. At least I'm in the state of Florida. So for now, we are available in all 67 counties in the state of Florida. The plan is to expand nationwide but that's going to take some time. For now, if you're in Florida, we're available to you. And the idea is that with the rules as clear as they have become, there really is very little reason why anybody should have to be fighting over their divorce. So in a nutshell, that's kind of where I'm at.
What you talked about getting sick and tired of it, or getting ground down, I guess. What was there a specific turning point for you?
Well, okay, so I am also divorced, right? So I'm a single mom of 2 kids. I support my kids by myself. And I was able to resolve my case amicably. My ex-husband could have fought me in certain ways. And the law really protected him more than it would have me. So I have to give him some credit for that. I think that when I got through my own divorce, and we've managed to maintain a relatively stable and friendly co-parenting relationship, we could be like fighting and bickering one moment, but the minute it has anything to do with our kids, it's like we change the channel. It's like we could literally be like, rah, 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 or whatever. But then it's like, well, but Frankie needs this, and it's like, okay, so what are we gonna do about Frankie? And so that, if I can do it, anybody could do it, right? And I live by a certain set of principles. I think we discussed a little bit about that too during our intro call. And I really try to apply those, like keeping my side of the street clean and not creating the wreckage of the future. And, I really try to infuse my advice to my clients from that vantage point. So I suppose that my own experience in divorce had a lot to do with my motivation to create something new. But I have to tell you that just as a litigator, like as a practitioner in the area, it's just not what I want to do in my life. Like I don't, I've already won the awards. I've beat the best of the best. Like I don't have anything left to prove. And once I got to that point, it's like, why would I want to do this with my time? Like, I just want to help people get through and over it and onto the other side as efficiently as possible.
Susan, can you relate to that?
It sounds familiar. Yeah. I mean, it's funny, Aliette, because I was just talking on one of my podcasts. I was doing an interview with another former litigator. He was civil litigation, corporate. And we were talking about, there's this aspect of litigation that for the attorneys is a hoot and a holler. We get to go into a courtroom, we use our skill, we get to
the theme song comes on when you walk in the courtroom, that whole.
Exactly. I object. It's but when you turn and look at the wreckage that it leaves behind, and we see that, the clients will come back to us usually in short order after that court appearance, after that divorce, because all that they've learned is conflict. All that they've been left with is, this new pattern of even more conflict than they probably had pre-litigation. And, when it becomes a very, very difficult way to make a living. The cost is so high emotionally, and people don't realize that, but for the people who are in it, doing it, trying to actually help other people. And when we realize that, maybe we're not helping as much as we'd like to, and maybe there's a better way to help. I had a similar epiphany as Aliette, just mine took it was probably around 17 or 18 years into the practice before and that's when I got certified as a mediator myself.
Talk to me, and Kate, bring in on this, the positive divorce movement, I guess, in general, and the shift, I guess, that you're seeing, not only in your own practice and where you're focused, but are people wanting, at least, are they coming more educated about the process instead of, all out war? No? Go ahead, Kate. That was a quick no.
In my experience, I spend my life telling people to not lawyer up. like, and dispelling the myth that the first thing you need to do when you get divorced is or when you decide you're going to get divorced is lawyer up. I am forever telling people, like, no, 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 no. The first thing you need to do when you decide you're getting divorced is take a breath and process all the emotions and the emotional fallout, and then come to sort of that, the sort of calm after the storm, and then you can make your decisions about how you're going to process the divorce. And I tell everyone about about mediation, and and dispel the myth that mediation is only for people who get along, which is, I thought, until I met Susan, I thought that was the case. So I do not think they're coming to the table any better equipped. And I also work with women who are in very high conflict situations. And so some of them do need to lawyer up. And there's, if they're really having, if he's lawyered up and is coming at her aggressively, then like we have a different thing. But I really do try to stop people from that as much as I possibly can. I really, really, really wish. I was really shocked. In the last couple of years, I've been really shocked at the number of people who come to the table ready to lawyer up.
Aliette, maybe you had said something about educating your clients and talking, and I've always, I think Susan sort of educated me on the legal process. Obviously, you have a responsibility, I think, a legal responsibility to do what your client wants. And so how do you balance that line between doing what your client wants, but also, I don't want to say steering them, but educating them at the same time, maybe to a different options?
Well, I feel like clients pay me for my advice and for my opinion. And that does not always have to be aligned with their opinion. And I don't ever pretend to my clients. I'm just very forthright. I tell them exactly what I think. And some of this stuff is just really not that complicated. And we usually know from the initial consultation how these things are going to end up. I mean, we can't guarantee a result ever. And of course, there's always room for negotiations. But, the marital portion of an asset is from the date of marriage to the date of filing, like it just is. Whether you're entitled to alimony is a little fuzzier, right? Because there's a series of factors that we have to consider. But I just try to tell people that being reasonable is always in their best interest. And, we have a saying in Spanish that says, a veces perdiendo se gana. And the literal translation is that sometimes by losing, you win. And the idea is that it may be perceived as a loss, but oftentimes it isn't, So inherent in any negotiations, right, is a give and take. Nobody settles for their worst day in court. Nobody walks away from a mediation with their best day in court. That's just really very rarely how it happens, because it's a give and take. And so I try to sort of explain that from the beginning. I like to manage expectations from the beginning. I tell them what the law is, not what I wish it would be, not what they wish it would be, but what the laws currently are in the state of Florida based on the statutes, the case law, and my 17 years of experience doing this. And then if it comes to a point where I always, it's in my retainer, actually. Like, I'm not fighting with the client too, like I'm not going to do it. Like if I'm telling you over and over and over again that things should be a certain way, and you just, you want me to fight for dissipation because you swear that there was an affair and that, so-and-so was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on his paramour, but the bank statements don't show it, and there's no evidence of it, I'm not going to take an unreasonable position in court. Like, I'm not going to so then I have to withdraw. So I try to manage the situation from the very beginning so that I don't find myself in that position, toward the end of the case. And I just really just try to be honest. And I also find, and I don't know if you ladies find this to be the same, but I tend to attract fairly reasonable people. I mean, it's very, very rarely nowadays do I find somebody somebody finds me who's completely like wanting to destroy the other side. Like I just don't generate that kind of business. It's not the energy that I put out. It's not the energy that I'm bringing in. Every once in a while it happens, they sneak through my filter, I suppose. but sometimes it doesn't get past the consultation because I don't ever tell them what I think they want to hear, and people who want to be unreasonable and people who want to fight want to hear rainbows and butterflies and, promises of the moon and stars right from the get-go. And since I won't do that, often we don't get past the consult, which is fine with me. Like I'd rather just be in the business, like I said, of helping reasonable people, especially when people are parents and they have to maintain a co-parenting relationship. I find that to be, where the most rewarding, because you have no choice. You have to deal with this other person for the rest of your life. I mean, to say that it ends at 18, I mean, Susan, you can speak to this probably more than me because my kids are only 12 and 9. But I imagine that even when my daughters are in their 20s and 30s, like their dad is still going to be a part of their life. And I don't ever want them to feel like they have to choose between me or them or feel weird because the two of us are going to be in the same place. Like, I don't want any of that for my kids. And so I try to protect my clients from that as well, so that their children don't have to be in a situation where they're on the soccer field and they don't know where to look because mom is sitting in one corner and dad is sitting in the other. And, like kids don't deserve that. It's already hard enough.
Yeah,
Life
no, it is.
hard
And I can
enough.
speak to not Nikki and my divorce, because I think we did that pretty well, but the other side of it, of my parents' divorce and a high conflict one. And let me tell you something. I mean, it's not just until you turn 18 that, my brothers and sisters and I had to worry about, where mom was sitting, where dad was sitting at a school function, a ball game, graduation, first marriage, second marriage. I mean, it goes on. It's one of those things that kids that turn into adults have to deal with. Susan, about the attraction of reasonable clients, is that something that you can relate to or that you can identify?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would have to agree 100% with Aliette. What we are putting out there to the potential clients, and just how we put ourselves out there in the world, will tend to bring us the clients who gravitate toward that energy. I mean, if you think about it, when you first decided to get the divorce, Ben, what you were looking for when you initially went out, and you write about this in the book, is that you wanted a certain energy of nail Nikki to the wall, right? Mm-hmm. Is how you phrased it, or something like that. And that's an energy. So that you found that person who had the hammer. But then when your energy changed, so did your, attraction to that type of counsel. And, the one thing that I do think, to be fair to family law attorneys across the board out there, is even when I was a litigator, the vast majority of my practice was not in a courtroom. The vast majority of the way I still handled my cases was to try and negotiate a settlement for my clients. And in fact, over 95% of divorce cases go to judgment with an agreement, which means most people in some fashion, and the largest number are usually negotiated through attorneys, are getting to an agreement. So it's not that we're sitting in that courtroom beating everybody up. But what people don't understand is, if you are in that dual representation model, while your attorneys are trying to resolve it for you, we're trying to work out a settlement, we also know that in the background, we have to be preparing for trial, because until the case is settled, the possibility of trial is always there. And we would not be ethically doing our jobs if we weren't always preparing for that. And there's a certain mindset that goes with preparing to be in a courtroom. And that is a much more litigious mindset. So but the vast majority of family law attorneys out there fully expect they're going to settle your case, but they're going to move in that rather more aggressive fashion because it's a part of that model.
Let me just a quick follow on for the lawyer. So, what was 75% don't go to trial? Is that that's not, what is it?
95.
95, but that isn't synonymous with easy, painless
no, that's
divorce,
what I'm trying
right?
to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or inexpensive, right? I mean, just because it doesn't go to trial doesn't mean.
Oh, no. I mean, it can take years to settle a case, and it can take hundreds of thousands of dollars and more. And don't think that in a mediated case, it can't take a long time and cost a lot of money,
or
that it's all sunshine and roses and, kumbaya. I mean, there's nothing about divorce that's frankly going to always be that, I don't even know, transformative, positive aspect to it. But much of it goes to what Aliette was talking about, and Kate as well. People being educated about, first off, most people think, well, you go get a lawyer, you dump it in the lawyer's hands, and they're going to take care of the whole thing for you. So they completely walk away from handling this aspect of their lives. We don't abdicate responsibility in our lives almost in any other way. But the minute we're getting divorced, we're like, oh, I'm going to give my life to someone else to fix it or figure it out for me. Yeah. And, most of people don't realize that they don't have to do it as a battle. They just don't know. They've seen it on TV for years. They've seen it in the movies. You saw your parents. I mean, everybody thinks it's a lawsuit. It's a fight to the death. It's the War of the Roses. And so if I'm getting a divorce, that's what I need to do. And that's one of the reasons why I loved the topic that, you had for today. And I know I've spoken with Aliette before, right? There can be a positive progression through this difficult transition, whether it be mediated, whether it be represented by counsel in a negotiated settlement, whether it be a quick divorce. I'm a huge, as you all know, huge fan of technology assisting us in this process. So. Sure.
I guess we spend a lot of time on our Mondays every week talking about education and how that paradigm, or whatever you want to call it, shifts into a more educated, knowledgeable, that it doesn't have to be that if you go to your lawyer like I did, the first one, and say, I want to destroy my ex-wife or my wife, and again, attraction was what I was looking for. And so I attracted the guy who said, yeah, it's wins and losses. So I guess, Kate, that's sort of, your lane, right? Right. He was happy.
You wrote him a big check. I'm sure he was like, come on in, man.
I did write him a big check and then asked for it back, and there wasn't a big check back. So I think we spent, at least trying to let people know about the right steps they can take in the beginning to attract, or look for, or Google search, the biggest, baddest, lawyer with the most amount of cases. So, Kate, how can that be done the most effective?
To avoid that?
Yeah, to educate. I mean, what steps can people take in the beginning when they've made that decision to not call, so-and-so from whatever his name was?
Well, call me first. Yeah. Because that's my job, right? My job is helping people process the emotional fallout so that once they're ready to file, they're really doing it from a place of neutrality, right? They're at a place where they are like, oh, this didn't work. Okay, now how can we make the best decision possible for our children to make the next part work, right? And as opposed to, this didn't work, and now I'm going to fight tooth and nail to destroy this other person, right? It's a different perspective, but you can't arrive at the former until you've really done the work to process through what got you here, right? And so, listen, I had a million and one reasons, and I'm sure Aliette did too, right? And I'm sure you did too, Ben. A million and one reasons to want to stick it to my ex and destroy him. But that wasn't going to, like, to what end, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, okay, like, I live in California. It's a no fault state. Like, it wasn't like we were gonna be able to, like, get into the nitty gritty of who did what, right? And which I think, I wish that more, well, I mean, I know that all states are no fault, but some of them have the fault statute in them. And, why are you going to use that? Like, to what end, really? And at the end of the day, if you have kids, as far as I'm concerned, if you don't have kids, I really don't give a shit for your divorce, right? I don't give a shit. Go for it, right? Spend all the money in the world. But if you have kids, it is your job to do this right for their sake. And so first.
And I love, Susan said you're abdicating your life into somebody else's hands, but also more importantly, your kids' future and their happiness, right? I mean,
and so their college fund,
their happiness, their well-being, to somebody who truly doesn't love your kids. I mean, that's right. You can hate your ex as much as you want, but your lawyer, even your coach, everybody else isn't going to love your kids, like you do. Aliette, some things that, as far as education and what people can do in the beginning, after that, decision's made, so at least they get a foundation to put themselves on the right step forward.
Yeah, so I write about a little bit of what Kate talked about in my book about, the psychological aspect having to come first, and how
Just in Case is the name of the book. I did.
Yes, Just in Case.
I didn't mention that at the beginning. I apologize.
It's okay. It was, because I agree completely with what Kate said, that you have to process before you get to the lawyers. Because also, if you haven't at least accepted that the relationship is over in a healthy way, then that's where I think, one, you're more susceptible to being manipulated by your lawyer, by the people around you. Everybody's got a story. Everybody knows somebody who's getting divorced, and divorces are nuanced, right? So your facts, even if they sound the same, they may not end up in the same result as your friend. And so I feel like you do really have to get yourself in a state where you're psychologically healthy enough to then start dealing with these other issues. I also think that it is really important that couples talk about their finances together in an open and liberal manner, right? So, and that's going to vary depending on the relationship model, right? We all know that there are certain relationships where that's maybe never going to happen. But in your average relationship where, you have two, I'm going to say normal, even though that's not a very PC word, but, in your average relationship, there should be an open, everybody should know what the mortgage costs. Everybody should know what the light bill is. Everybody should know more or less what the income that's coming into the house is. You have to have kind of a conversation. It would be helpful if you did that before you got to your divorce, so that then you know what you're entitled to before you even get to your divorce lawyer.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. Just sorry for, but they're going to find that information out anyways. I mean, right? I mean, that is all going to be. You're just going to have to pay somebody a lot of money to find that out, right? In forensic accounting or whatever it is. So, I mean, it's also going to be.
A lot of games are played in the discovery process, and a lot of money is spent or wasted, I should say, in the discovery process. So if you get together and you're like, look, this is what there is, because the law is going to say the number is what the number is,
right.
So if you can kind of get on the same page about those things, and I don't mean down to like the cents, but just so that everybody kind of comes into it knowing what the reality is of the family's finances, I think you avoid a lot of heartache. And I have to say, Susan, I learned this term, the positive divorce movement, from you. And I always say, I heard it from Susan Guthrie, the positive divorce movement. That's why I thought it was a perfect topic, because we were going to be on this together. I think that if you go out there and look for people who are looking for to disseminate the positive divorce movement into the world, you're already going to be a step ahead, because then you're going to put yourself in the hands of practitioners who really are going to try to do the best they can for you, who aren't going to tell you to make a mountain out of a molehill, who are, going to try to have your back as much as possible while pushing forward, and advocating for you, yet doing it with a mindful, holistic approach. So I would say those are basically like the three things that I would say are the most important things to start, right? So first, it's get your psychological state in order. I mean, divorce is hard for everybody. I don't care if you've been married for 3 years or married for 30. It's a death in a way, and it's hard and it hurts and it takes time to heal from it. So there's no shame in needing, some help in that arena. Then I would say get your finances in order. And then thirdly, go out there and look for people who are aligned with what your goals are. And hopefully your goals are to move on from your relationship in a healthy and practical way, as opposed to I want to nail her to the wall.
Well, I wanted to do a little bit more than that, but I thought for the sake of publishing, that would be appropriate, and for the sake of not incriminating myself. Kate, one thing, or Susan, do you want to add on to that? Because I know that
I wanted to say, because I love that Aliette said this, that notice the order she just put things in. It completely coincides with what Kate just said. Get your emotional house in order first. That is the first thing to do. Then figure out what you have. You don't actually need an attorney to go and pull together all that information and stuff. You can actually do that. And then when you have your life together, then go find the professionals, lawyer up, mediator up, do those things. But that's the correct order to do this in. And it goes to that, take a deep breath that Kate was talking about, and educate yourself. One of the reasons why I talk about the positive divorce movement, or getting divorced in a different paradigm than what we all think is the way you have to do it, is because someone who's listening right now may not need a divorce attorney or be thinking of divorce today, but sooner or later they will, or someone they know will. And we want people to know that correct order to go about it, and that it can be done without turning it into the most expensive, destructive thing you've ever done in your adult life.
Kate?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
She said, yeah.
He just wrote a blog post about, like, okay, you're getting divorced. Now what? You've decided you're getting a divorce. What do you do now? And I literally listed them in that order. Get your emotional house in order, get your financial house in order, and educate yourself about what the laws are in your state. Have a consultation with an attorney. Do not put down the incredibly expensive retainer, right? But have a consult. Learn what the laws are in your state. And as Aliette was saying, don't take other people's advice who's A, never been divorced, B, never been divorced in your state, and not a divorce attorney in your state, about how it's going to go or what you should do. Because at the end of the day, every divorce is different, as Aliette said, and every state is completely different. So emotional house in order, financial house in order, and then educate yourself on what the laws are in your state. But don't do that first.
Right. One thing that we had talked about, Aliette, when we first got together was you had said that you seem to have a lot of male clients, and for the, it's something I've tried to focus on a lot, and there are some differences, right? I mean, there was a book written about it, about 2 different planets, and right, which is absolutely true. But some of the nuances, I guess, of what a man can deal with and what a woman can deal with in your experience.
So yeah, I don't.
You can be as harsh as possible, or as you want.
No,
There's only one man here, so go for it.
Right. No, you guys are just no. I'm just I honestly, I don't know why. When I wrote the book and it was published, then the table sort of turned and I was representing a lot more women. But as years have passed since that book was published, and now I'm like kind of back to normal. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I seem to attract a heavy, male client base. I mean, I do represent a lot of women too, but I don't know. I think maybe it's something to do with my approach, like sometimes I'm not super warm and fuzzy, or sometimes it's probably my fault, like it's probably like, well, I don't I don't know, because I don't want to say anything that could be offensive or non-PC or sound, or like categorize women as being one way versus men being a different way, or anything. I don't really know why it is. I represent men and do the same thing that I do with women. I take a very logical approach. I don't spend a lot of time asking them why they want to get divorced or what went on to get them here, unless I think I need to know for purposes of for strategy, because sometimes you need to understand the whole story and the psychology behind it, so that then you can try to figure out what the motivation was for the action, and then you can best strategize what the best counter response would be, right? But so I don't know. Maybe it's that. I'm sorry. I'm kind of at a loss.
No, that's
for words.
okay.
I'm not exactly sure why it turns out that way.
Right, Kate. I know you probably have, and maybe not the attraction of clients, but the sort of the difference in maybe because you're more business and straight shooter approach, but the nuances or the differences in how to deal with men getting divorced and women getting divorced.
Well, I don't work with men. I'm not saying like I don't work with men because they suck. I'm a woman, and as a coach, like I think that my passion has always been women's empowerment. So, and looking at the structures and the systemic structures that get them to where they are in their marriages and the ends of demise of their marriages, and helping women sort of dismantle those systems for themselves, but also as a society and culturally, and look at all those pieces. So I talk, me, I got a big mouth, so I'm talking about it all the time. So my people find me, like Susan and I, we have podcasts, like we're always talking about the things that matter to us. And so yeah, the right people find me. And here's the thing. I get a lot of men who email me and say, hey, I have been listening to your podcast. It has been so helpful to me. I just realized that I've been abusing my wife and I didn't mean to be, but it's my own shit. What do I do? Right? Is there a chance that I can get her back? And I'm like, great. Like that is the first step. Now go do the hard work. Right. And so I'll engage with men. But they're just not, I don't work with them, privately. And that's just.
Yeah, well, I remember our conversation, and I think in the beginning I asked you, do you work with men? And you said it wasn't for lack of effort or lack of, and I think that's maybe one of the nuances, right? Is we're not, and by we I mean my species or my sex, aren't really meant for or conditioned or brought up to talk about our feelings, right? We're more, business-like or not business-like, but emotionless, apathetic when we deal with stuff, even though there is emotions involved.
Yeah, well, you've been punished. Men overall have been punished for their emotional lives, right? Grow a pair. Don't be a fucking pussy. Like all of the things that men are conditioned to believe about themselves if they express their feelings. And so, you're right. When I first started coaching, I get a lot of men who were like, I want a program like you have for women, for men. And I was like, okay, great. And I created it, and then none of them bought it. And I was like, You literally asked me for this. Like I was like, come and be part of the beta group. Like really like, low price point. Let's beta test this. Let's get this out. Nope. And so I was like, all right, I guess men don't. And again, I don't want to generalize like Aliette, like I don't want to generalize, but overall, personal development is consumed far more far more
widely,
more widely than by women than men. And I hate it. I hate it. If there's one thing that we could change in our society, that would be it. But I can't run a business and hang my hat on it. So I don't have a choice.
Susan, some of the, I mean, you have the unique perspective of sort of sitting around the table with both parties. Some of the differences or hurdles that you see that could be changed to get to different outcomes.
I mean, it is a different perspective to have both parties sort of at the table, as you would call it. So I'm dealing with both of them at the same time. And you do find, I mean, by the time people are sitting at a divorce mediator's table, they've been socialized in the world that we all grow up in. So they're coming in and I would say behave generally as we would expect men who've been told to grow a pair and women who have been, told to cry into their wine or whatever. I mean, buy a new pair of shoes and feel better. So that tends to play itself out in the mediation process just as much as it played out when they were, I was representing a man or a woman in a divorce case. I would have a different approach usually with my male clients than I would have with my female clients because they were looking for something different. The key is I mean, at least at the mediation table where I'm trying to talk to both of them is getting them to actually see the perspective of the other party and hear what the other person. So, as a generalization, dads are usually worried about being marginalized in their children's lives and worried about not having an important role. Women are usually worried about support and you're worried about, the years they've given up to raising children and all that. And so, in that moment, people tend to be very focused on their needs and their fears. And the turning point in many mediations is when they can turn it around and start looking at things through each other's eyes, or at least starting to see it through that filter. And that actually is one of the things that I think is beneficial to couples who go through mediation, because when you are in a situation where someone is advocating for you, it's separate from you. You're not hearing what's going on. You're not hearing the other person's perspective as it's put forth. Whereas if you're sitting in a mediation with your soon-to-be ex and things are being phrased in a way that you can start to see, oh, wait, he's worried he's not going to have enough time with our kids, or she's worried she's not going to be able to, pay the mortgage or whatever that might be. It starts to open up a new pathway toward that future together. And I think that is true whether we're talking about divorce or relationships or male-female, relations going forward in time. Is the only way to break down that barrier that Kate's talking about that she hates so much with toxic masculinity, et cetera, is to have the conversations about it and start understanding that both sexes suffer because of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Aliette, on your the white paper, the positive divorce movement on your website, thequickdivorce.com, what can people, they can download it? What can people expect
they can download it
from the white paper? What are some of the over 40,000 foot view of what they can expect from it?
Well, it's a little bit about what we've just discussed now, and we talk about we have a little bit of the research of divorce cases and the antagonism that is often found in them, and the benefits to resolving your divorce with a amicable and friendly disposition, so that you lessen the stress and you don't decimate your marital estate or your marital, what's left of your relationship.
And then just briefly, you talked about earlier the quickdivorce.com, available only in Florida or right now? And what
For
can
now,
people?
we're only available in Florida. Yeah, all
So,
67 counties though, from the Panhandle down to the Keys.
so if I'm in, I am in Florida, but I'm not getting divorced anytime soon. At least I don't think so. Again, but what's different with the quickdivorce.com than the typical sort of, calling your lawyer, cleaning up? How does it different? But you get to the same outcome, right?
Yes, well, it's completely different because we provide a lot of resources to help inform you and educate you what the laws are and what you're going to have to end up doing. We give you tools to for the equitable distribution of your assets and liabilities, the same tools that I use in my litigation practice. And then we've almost fully automated the entire process. So it's pretty neat. I mean, I've worked really hard on it. And so it comes in 2 different downloads because I didn't want to overwhelm everybody with like all the documents that you need for a divorce. But for a flat fee, I think our lowest price point is $5.95. It's a flat fee. You literally get every document that you need, your settlement agreements, your parenting plan if you need that. And then once you put the agreement together, which you would have to do in any case if you settle at mediation or not, you upload that, and then we send you a second link, and all the documents are for electronic signature. So you literally just have to sign, and then everything is in there, and then we e-file for you, and you're divorced, pretty quickly. It's intended to be a streamlined process. We've made it as easy as possible, and we're available to assist, if you need help. We don't offer legal advice because that's the whole point, right? But it has everything you need to get divorced from the first form you need all the way through to the final judgment.
So, again, this is from a layman. I'm about to ask this question, but so is this uncontested, mainly for uncontested divorces, or?
Yes. I mean, there's a presumption that you have an agreement that you're going to put into. So it's basically my forms that I've worked on over all these years with my boilerplate language. We're very clear that you take what you like and you leave the rest. If you don't like certain language, you're free to delete it, and we say that in the guide that we provide. And they just kind of like fill in the blank, like, we're gonna pay, the house. We have this house, and this is what we're gonna do with it. And so you just kind of fill in the portions of the agreement that require your attention. But yes, the short answer to your question is yes. It presumes that people are in agreement to the terms, because that's what we're trying to push. We're trying to push that people come to an agreement. And then, I recommend, I'm not sure if it was Kate or Susan who said it, that, you can take your agreement and then take it to a lawyer and be like, hey, I just want you to take a look at it and make sure that I didn't miss anything. But that's very different, in a consultation from, with an agreement already drafted, where the lawyer might say, oh, look, you forgot to add this about your taxes or whatever. Than it is to just do the whole case with 2 lawyers and 2 accountants and 2, I'm just trying to help people to streamline the process.
And Susan, I know you had said it earlier, and you've said it many times, but this is something that is right up your alley, right? For technology and streamlining the process.
Yeah, I mean, this is, and I applaud you, Aliette, because I know how much work goes into putting together a platform that can accomplish this. But, as I said, 95% of cases do go forward uncontested. All uncontested means is that there's an agreement on all issues. There's nothing contested. There's nothing to argue about. So going through all the stats, 95% of the cases go to judgment with an agreement, with a settlement. And 85% of cases have at least one party who doesn't have an attorney, who's self-represented. So think about all of those people. And I mean, I don't know Florida's forms, but I know Connecticut's, New York's, and California's, and they suck. And they're hard to understand. And they make it as complicated as possible. And, when you can go online and technology is there to help you move through this process without having to get attorneys involved and accountants involved. You're making those decisions for yourself. It is your life. I mean, that was always one of my things, even when I was a litigator, when the client would sit down and say, well, what should I do? And I'd be like, the bottom line is the final call has to be yours, because I'm going to go home tonight to my life, but you're going to go home to yours. And that's the decision that needs to be made. So I love that you're doing that, Aliette. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Aliette, where could people find you? I mean, we said the quickdivorce.com. You had mentioned before that you're on a little detox, I think, from Instagram, but where can people find more information on you?
So the website is thequickdivorce.com, and we are on Instagram at thequickdivorce. I'm just really taking a little detox break from the social media. It was becoming a lot, but I'll be back on now shortly.
Well, thank you for your time. As you can appreciate, I have a lawyer co-host and a coach co-host who are very expensive per hour. So we make sure we don't go past the 6 o'clock hour Eastern. So thank you very much for your time. And Kate and Susan, people can find you and Our Happy Divorce everywhere here. Susan, who do you have on your podcast this week?
Oh, I actually have Evan Shine, who's a New York City attorney, and so many people had written in asking me questions about depositions. What are they? Why do you do them? And how do I get ready for one? So Evan's a litigator, and he walks us through basically like you were one of his clients, getting you ready for a depo.
And Kate?
Right now, I have Lily Vasilev on until the end of the week. So Lily, yes, thanks to Susan for that recommendation. We're talking about financial abuse, what that means, how to recover from it. And then next week, y'all, on Thursday. So Thursday, Bill Eddy.
Bill Eddy, the Biff Master, who was our guest 2 weeks ago. If you have a chance to go back and watch the live stream or listen to Kate or Susan's podcast, he is phenomenal. And I've been trying to practice it. I'm not very good at it, but I guess it
takes practice, like Bill said.
I guess it takes practice. But Aliette, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
All right, we'll talk.